Good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon,
This could
everyone.
be done at any time.
This could be done at any time. That's the beauty and the flexibility of podcast.
This could be good evening.
This could be good evening.
This is Tom.
And I am Robyn. And we are Saint Ambrose Live. Welcome back.
It's been a little bit of time.
It has been a little bit of time.
But we're back.
We are back, and I'm excited to be here.
So it's good to we got some good feedback from people from our first podcast. If you are listening and you have any comments you'd like to leave, any good comments or some bad comments or some words to grow by, you just let us know in the comments, and we will read them, and maybe we will even address them on air.
Yeah, we love feedback. That's how you grow, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're recording this on Sunday. What's today's date?
Today's the 22nd.
Today's the 22nd. It's Sunday the 22nd and
Of March.
Of March. That's right. And Robyn, how have you been feeling?
How have I been feeling? I've been feeling a little overwhelmed lately. I can't lie to the good people of the podcast. The recent developments, just in terms of, I don't even know what you would call it, but like Cuomo's executive order mandating 100% of non-essential people report from home, like all of that stuff happening has caused me to become very overwhelmed. Things are very uncertain, and I have felt at times like I was living in some kind of like movie.
Yes.
You know, like these are the kinds of things that happen in the plots of sci-fi horror films, not like in real life. So
yeah, I had a weird experience. I went for a walk yesterday, and we are still allowed to take walks, so that's
we
good.
are. Yeah, that's good to clarify.
I know, but with healthy distance between
Correct. Yes.
between us all. But you know, it was strange. It was I was hearing the birds singing, and yet there was no people around, and it was this weird feeling that everything is trying to be okay, even while everything is not exactly okay. So I would echo your sentiment. It is not. Things just don't feel great.
No, they don't feel great.
Yeah.
They feel like you opened your lunchbox and you had a soggy sandwich in there.
And that's the worst.
That is the worst.
Yeah.
I feel like a soggy sandwich. And yeah, no, I mean, you're right. Of course you're right. Like focusing on the good.
Yeah.
Or what's providential, or, you know, the way that God is taking care of us is obviously the right way to deal with it. But I think I'm supplementing that with a lot of television.
Yeah.
And
that's fair.
Cheetos and such. So
yeah, well, we want to know, how are you guys feeling? How's everyone doing out there? How's life been for you? We want to hear from you.
we do.
We want to make sure that you guys are doing all right, and we're trying our best on our end, and hopefully we get through this all together.
No, I agree. And to whatever capacity, you know, the comments section for these videos can become a place for community. I think I would really encourage that. I think the point of this that we've been underscoring, you know, for a while is that like we're doing this because we want to stay connected to each other.
Yeah.
And technology is, you know, one of the many gifts of that is that it facilitates that a little bit.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that we can connect through this podcast and be there for each other.
Yeah. It's social media is good,
Right.
but there's just so much stuff that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm obsessively checking my social media
Oh, it's
feed.
so bad, right?
Yeah, and it's all
Yep.
bad news. It's not
Nothing
even like
good is
those things.
happening there in
no,
Twitter.
No crazy cat video is going to make this better, you know.
No.
But all the more to have something out there that's kind of like an oasis that says, hey, there's a little slice of home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, make sure we have something like that going on
Totally.
for us. I have a question too. What do you think it means to be a church right now? Because here we are, and it has been several days into this whole, lockdown ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't gather as a church.
Right.
So what does it mean to be a church right now?
Oh man, I wish I had a clever answer for this, and I think part of what's stressing me out so much is that I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
Um, to whatever extent that we can, I feel like we should be making a concerted effort to reach out to one another and be there for each other
Mm-hmm.
and be in relationship with one another.
Yes.
I think that's something that I think that's one of the values that we have as Catholics is to love each other as we love ourselves. And even when we can't be in the same physical space as one another, there's ways to express that love.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
No, I think, I was thinking about this. I was thinking of my mom, and my mom is kind of stuck inside as a lot of moms.
Yeah.
And, it just dawned on me that, just talking to her on the phone is just a great deal of the connection she's going to have.
Sure.
And I think for a lot of folks, maybe it's getting past text messages and getting somebody on the phone or FaceTiming with somebody, and trying to find ways to check in with people so that they feel connected,
Right.
And yeah, we have this whole thing of social distancing, but we have to find a way to be human to one another and to be connected with one another.
Right.
So I think we can do stuff like that. And I also think that, trying to find the good that you can do. And I think, there are ways on the online sphere where you can try to be good to people and to right wrongs and to, be charitable. I think you can do that online. And I think, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the parish, but but trying to see if there's ways that you can either help or, you can provide for the needs of other people. And the reality of the situation is that there are a lot of people who have just become poorer. If they were poor before, they're poorer now. And if they weren't before, they are now because of just the loss of work and income and everything else that's been going on. And if you are in a situation where you have been blessed, maybe to say, I can help out in some way, and make sure that the hungry are fed and those
Yeah.
who need stuff have the stuff they need.
I think that's what I'm going to call the podcast. Do the good that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Do the good that you can do.
absolutely. Last question.
Okay.
How are we coping? What are our coping mechanisms?
What are my coping
Are they
mechanisms?
poor or are they?
Are they things I would advise others to do, or are they things I'd rather people not know about?
Yeah.
No, I think having a good repertoire of coping skills is really important, and certainly just being present and being aware of how I'm existing in the world is like the biggest coping skill for me. Like being present in my own mind and recognizing when I'm on the 30-minute mark of scrolling through Twitter and like being aware of what that's doing to myself and deciding to like maybe do something else, like
Yeah.
watch TV or do some homework or something like that.
Yeah.
Just being aware of what's going on. And I think, I'm not sure if this counts as a coping skill, but I'm trying to focus on being flexible and open to change because things are going to continue to change rapidly. So I think it's more of like mental headspace coping things that I do. Also, a lot of television.
Yeah.
I mean, cooking, cuddling my cats,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things. What are your coping skills? Tom?
Well, it's
what do you
weird.
do?
I'm a father to 3, and we just before this all hit, we very unwisely got a puppy.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so
The puppy.
The puppy, yeah, and the puppy has really acclimated to the family, but it's just I'm so used to being busy with family stuff, and I think it's just a little trickier because they have no outside life right now. All the kids have nothing to do that's outdoors or with their friends, so you kind of get stir crazy. But I've noticed my coping mechanism, I'm not saying this is a good one, is just keeping busy and and it's just the regular life stuff that still has to happen,
Totally.
and still trying to explain to the kids like what is going on, because it's from their vantage point. I mean, my daughters are 2.5, 9 and 10, or 8 and 9. Sorry, I should know what their ages are at this point.
That's okay.
But one's almost 10. But they don't really comprehend what's going on, and so just trying to explain stuff to them, and I think just being a dad is my coping mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah, I've often wondered, how, because I don't have kids, like how are young people handling this? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you're saying they don't really understand.
They just don't get it. Like
No.
we're watching the press conference with the governor, and we said you really should pay attention to this.
Right.
And so we're thinking we're going to have these great conversations.
No.
They're just like, this is so boring. When's it? Or they think it's like something on Netflix
Sure,
or
yeah.
YouTube. So they're like, when's it over? And they're hitting the button on the thing to see when the end point is. And I'm like,
It's a
over.
live press conference.
It's over when it's over. And that's okay. And, that's just kind of where they're at,
Totally.
I think it's just part of kid living. They cope by being kids, and that's, there's something about that. I think, when Jesus tells us that we have to be like children to enter the kingdom of heaven, maybe there's something that I need to learn, just kind of being in the moment and still focusing on everyday concerns, because that's what a kid does.
Amen.
Amen. So there we go. So
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was thinking, so how is our parish doing? It's in this time.
I'm going to ask you that question. How is our parish doing?
Well, I'll tell you guys, as I've heard from a lot of folks, and what I've been hearing most often is that people miss their parish, and from the parish side of it, we miss you. There's still a way that we can be a parish while we're away, and we can talk about what that means. But some regular just house cleaning type stuff. Our food pantry has new hours. If you want to support our food pantry, if you want to bring food to our food pantry, please do. We are seeing that there is a great need out there, and we want to be able to meet that need. And I think, not to be a downer, but I feel like that need is just going to go up over time.
It is. And I wanted to emphasize, too, that, the food, if you would like to give a monetary donation to the food pantry, because of the position that we're in, we can get food very cheaply if we have the funds to do so. So if you don't have any leftover canned goods or such in your pantry, but you still want to help, the good people of the food pantry know how to work whatever donations they're given, for sure. Like pennies on the pound, some of the food they can get. So
Yeah.
And the new hours are 10 to 2, Monday through Friday, and there's also a pickup window from 4 to 6 on Mondays.
That's right.
If anybody needs it, just give a call. You'll be transferred to that line.
Yes.
Leave a message, you'll get a call back.
Yeah, please.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a current client and you need something.
Absolutely. Please support our food pantry. Our chapel is open.
It is, and I gave the wrong times for the chapel in the last podcast.
How dare you?
How
could you?
I don't know. I am deeply sorry.
That's okay.
I'll seek absolution. I'll go to confession later.
Too.
So the actual hours are 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yes.
Part of the chapel, I'm sorry, not the whole chapel is open. What I meant to say is part of the church is open to you. There is a spiritual space still open. We just ask that when you come, you practice safe hygiene and social distancing efforts when you're there. Otherwise, that's a community space.
Yeah, what we're finding is that people have really been missing the Eucharist. And this is a way to be close to the Lord in the Eucharist, even from far away.
Yep.
And so please take advantage of that and know that's open to you. And I don't think that's going anywhere.
Is that all of our parish updates?
No, the other one is that you may have noticed that we've been doing a lot more stuff online. This podcast is part of that. We did put the Mass up for Sunday, and
recorded version of the Mass.
A recorded version of the Mass, and we got great feedback. Most feedback that we've ever gotten for any post of anything.
Wow.
That we've ever done, and between
insert applause sound effect there. Yay! People love the Mass.
Yeah, people want their parish Mass, so we're still trying to make sure that we have that happen. Especially as we go into Holy Week, pray for us so that we can, make stuff happen for you. But we also, by the time you hear this, you may have noticed we've also started a blog, and
Saint Ambrose Live blog.
Saint Ambrose Live blog.
That was awful.
That was almost a harmony. That was just,
I was searching for one but didn't find it.
yeah,
So
if I went high and you went low.
my bad.
Yeah,
My bad.
we can try it again. Do you want to try it again?
No, I'm good.
Okay, that's fine.
We'll have that, locked and loaded for next time. But yeah, we have a blog.
Yeah, we have a blog, and it's written by people of the parish. And if you
Yes.
have anything you would like to contribute,
Please do.
Yeah, we would love to hear from you. A blog is a very simple thing. It's just like writing your own article online. It could be a couple of
Yes.
paragraphs, just some ideas that you put down on paper. And we have some great ones. We have our director of operations, Carrie Lombardo, wrote one, and it's very good on parenting in this difficult time. There's another one by one of our catechists, Kristen Frank.
Yay, Kristen Frank.
Yeah, she's awesome. And she wrote a great blog post that I think would give a lot of perspective on how we can look at this time of difficulty right now and see
Great
God's
post.
grace in it. Yeah, it was really good. So check it on out. And if you feel so moved, just email me. You can email me at thomas.acemoglu, ACEMOGLU, @rcda.org. And I would love to hear from you. And if we're trying to stagger them out, we want to put all the blogs out all at once. That would be crazy. 10 blogs out at once and then nothing for a while. But
Blog posts.
Blog posts.
Blog posts.
Yeah,
yes.
that would be a great thing. So
This is something that I have wanted to have for so long, and
How
I am
long?
so excited that we finally have it.
How long
A
have you
very long
waited?
time since I was hired here. I think that the community itself has a lot of spiritual wisdom that needs to be tapped and shared, and I'm
Yeah.
just so excited. I think the blog is one of those spaces where we learn from each other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So great. So
So if you feel
send
so
us
inspired,
if you feel inspired, send us your stuff.
if you want us to give you an assignment, you can email me and I can give you an assignment.
Yeah.
But you could also just say, I'd like to write about this, and then we can just work it out.
Amen.
Amen. So what do we have coming up next?
So we would like to talk about this upcoming Sunday's gospel reading,
Absolutely.
which is the gospel reading for the 29th, which will be the last Sunday before Palm Sunday. Wait, am I wrong? Did I say that wrong? No, I'm right. The 29th. So I think we should just dive right into it. This is the story of the raising of Lazarus.
Yeah, and this is a miracle that happens towards the end of Jesus's earthly ministry. It's in John's gospel. He is head towards Jerusalem. It's kind of nearing the end, and then we have this great story.
It's nearing the end.
Amen.
Okay, so I'm just gonna start reading it.
Okay.
Does that sound okay to you?
That's
All right, so this is from John chapter 11, 1 through 45. Now a man was ill, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So I just wanted to stop and quick point something out and ask you a question about this. So John makes a point of making it clear that this is the brother of Mary and Martha, right? And he makes it clear that the Mary in question is the one who anoints Jesus's feet and washes them with her hair.
Yeah.
And so my question to you is, are these the same sisters from Luke's gospel who are part of that really well-known story of the servant and
Yeah. Where,
do you know what I mean? So
where Martha and Mary Jesus is at their house.
yes.
Martha is serving everybody. Mary is sitting at the Lord's feet.
Right. And
Martha
he tells
gets-
Martha that Mary chose the better part or whatever.
Martha complains a little bit.
Martha complains. Well, it's funny because that story in particular is a favorite one in this office because there are some Marys and Marthas hanging out.
Yeah.
And everybody has an opinion about that story. But the reason I bring it up is because it shocked me reading it this time that I had forgotten that that's something that he points out.
Yeah.
And that this is a very specific cast of characters that is coming up again and again in these miracles and in
Absolutely.
these stories.
Yeah. Are you a Martha
So-
or a Mary?
I would like to think I'm a Mary.
Yeah.
I would. I think I like to get things done.
Yeah.
But I would like to think that I'm a Mary. I don't know.
That's good.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no. I don't know if there's. That's a story that we can talk about another day. But
Yeah,
I don't
we'll
think
save
that
that one.
I don't think that the way people talk about Martha or Mary most commonly is really fair.
Yeah.
But whatever. Another story for another day. The story goes on. So the sisters sent a word to Jesus saying, Master, the one you love is ill. When Jesus heard this, he said, This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. So this is interesting.
Yes. Yeah, such a weird thing to say. This illness will not end in death. Right? Because what's going to happen to Lazarus? And just
straight up, he's going to die.
He's going to die, yeah.
Dude straight up dies.
I know. It says, I would get my hopes up here, right? Like,
right.
Oh, great. So he's not going to die. But that's not exactly how the story plays out.
I think it's interesting, too, that John, the author, underscores. So Jesus loved Mary and Martha and Lazarus. And when he heard he was ill, he remained where he was.
Yes.
For 2 days. So it's kind of this contradiction of what you expect, I think.
Yeah.
You expect Jesus to drop everything when he hears that his friends are dearly sick.
Right.
But it says almost because he loved them so much, he stays there for 2 more days.
Yeah.
He doesn't leave right away. It's almost like if you heard that one of your kids was sick and your wife called you and your response was, because I love them, I'm gonna wait 2 days before I go see them.
It's strange.
Right? It's very odd.
Well, we have this idea that we learn in our lives that God's timing, and like, God does things at the right time and everything.
I feel like that's a theme that we emphasized, or we heard in the reading last week that's coming up again this week.
Yeah.
Right? That like that these things are happening for a purpose, and it's to glorify the Lord.
Yeah, that's a strange thing, because it's like, for God to be glorified in what's happening, we don't think of it this way. We just think, well, God, do your great thing. Do whatever mighty, powerful, wonderful thing you're going to do. Why don't you do that? But the reality is the context of those wonderful things is usually something horrible happening. Right? Because the more awful things get, the more the glory. Right? So in this particular story, Jesus is going to wait around. It's going to lead to Lazarus's death.
Right.
And yet, somehow, in this craziness, God is going to be glorified.
Right. So let's keep reading. We haven't even gotten there yet. So, when he heard he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then, after this, he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles because the light is not in him." He said this and then told them, "Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I am going to awaken him." So this is just interesting, I think, because we're learning that Jesus is in danger, or will be in danger by returning to Martha and Mary's home.
Yeah.
And it's a point of contention for the disciples, right? Like, they bring it up. They're like, dude, if you go back there, they might try to kill you.
Yeah, well, his ministry up to this point had been in Galilee to the north, and Judea is to the south,
right.
And it's closer to danger because it's closer to Jerusalem, right? So there is this real fear that something's going to go wrong. Then he has that line right there where he says, "Lazarus is asleep, and I'm going to awaken him." He speaks it very mysteriously.
He does. And the disciples, I'll just keep reading really quick. But Jesus was talking about his death. Oh, no, I'm sorry. So he says, "Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I'm going to awaken him." So the disciples said to him, "Master, if he is asleep, he will be saved." So the disciples are taking him quite literally at his word that he's asleep.
Right.
And that he's going to be fine.
Right.
And Jesus says, but Jesus was talking about his death while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. And so Jesus said to them clearly, "Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there, so that you may believe. Let us go to him." So Thomas, who is called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us go to die with him." This is really interesting.
Yeah, it's strange because it's like he says, it's good that I wasn't there, because we see in Jesus is we see somebody who is attached to his friend.
Yeah.
And is sad at the idea of being around at his death, right? Which we like, you would think that the mind of God is like, well, it's going to be okay, everything is going to be fine. It's like, no, God, when he becomes one of us in Jesus, he is feeling everything a human being is going to feel at death. So that same kind of trepidation that we would feel when if someone we knew was dying and saying, well, do I want to say goodbye to them? Do I feel ready for this? Do I want to be around them when this happens? It's the same thing that Jesus is going through.
I don't know if he stays away because is that what you're saying? Is that he's staying away because he doesn't want to see Lazarus die?
I don't know.
I don't know if
Well, what do you think?
I don't know if I get the same read.
What's your read?
I don't know. It seems to me very clearly to me from the beginning, John is trying to emphasize, John being the writer, that the reason that he's not leaving right away to go see Lazarus is because he knows the plan.
Yeah.
The plan is we're going to let Lazarus pass away, and then I'm going to raise him again. And through that act, I'm going to convert and cause so many people to believe. I don't think that he's not going to be with Lazarus because he's avoiding anything. I think there's a plan, and I think it pains him not to go right away. John's creating this tension almost in the narrative by saying, like, this is what normally people do, but this is what Jesus did, and here's what he says, and here's why.
I think it's a fair interpretation. I think for me, the thing that makes me think he's just kind of hesitant to be around this is he's the emotional reactions he's going to have to the death, which we're going to encounter in just a little bit, just very shortly. But when it culminates into his tears at his tomb, there's something about this that he's on a journey to Lazarus's tomb. Now, what he does when he gets to that tomb is going to be the real indicator of who this person is. But he is, in a sense, I hate to say it this way, but almost scared to go to the tomb because the reality of his friend's death is going to have to stare him in the face.
Oh, I disagree with you so much. I don't think Jesus is afraid at all.
All right.
He says very clearly in that part, he says, Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there.
Interesting.
I was glad for you. Because, I'm sorry, it doesn't say because, it says, I was glad that I was not there, that you may believe. I think he's got a plan.
Okay, maybe, you know what?
I think he's got a plan. I like disagreeing with you, though, because it's kind of fun.
This is fun. Isn't it right? This is Bible reading at its best. That's fair. You know what? No, you make a good point. He says that.
I don't know. I think you might be projecting a little bit.
I might be. Well, we'll see what we'll
see. I don't know. Okay, let me keep reading.
Okay.
So, and also I just wanted to throw a little shout out there to Thomas.
Yeah.
Who is called Didymus, because he's so darn brave. And he says, let's go and die with him. Like, I love that guy, doubting Thomas. Like, I don't know. Real connection to him. I identify with him a lot, but, for all his doubt, like, he's got some courage and strength. So, whatever. Shout out to Didymus. Didymus. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days.
Ooh.
I don't want to dwell on this too much, but a dead body after 4 days is...
That's code word for really, 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 really
super dead.
Yeah.
He is super dead. Code for really dead.
If he was accidentally dead on day one, he is definitely
dead now.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So to continue, it says, now Bethany was near Jerusalem. We're talking about geography right now.
Mm-hmm.
Only about 2 miles away. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brothers. This is a little bit of political tension John's sort of spicing up the story with. He goes on to say, when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary sat at home, which I find to be intriguing based on what we know about these sisters already.
So Mary.
So Mary.
Such a Mary
so
move.
Martha. Such a Martha move. Active to the very end. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give to you. I love this line that she just said, but I'm going to finish this section and then we can go back to talk about it. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise. Martha said to him, I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world. So Just a little bit of props to Martha. She's come a long way since we last saw her in Luke's gospel,
Yeah.
right?
Though I like her answer when she said,
Oh, yeah.
she said, your brother will rise. And I hear it like this. I know, I know, I know. He'll rise in the resurrection on the last day. And it's just like, no,
Okay,
you're
that's
missing
one
what-
way to read it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just because it's a pious answer,
Sure.
it's not that she doesn't have faith. She does have faith, but Jesus is going to take it a step further and say, no, 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 no. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, even if he dies, will live.
And he says, do you believe this?
Yeah,
She said, yeah, I've come to believe that you are the Christ.
yeah,
What I love about that section is the line that she says that her sister later repeats, which is, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died.
that's a great line.
This is a hotly discussed line as well, I found in trying to do some research for this. People
Yeah.
have a lot of things to say about this line.
Well,
And I don't know if I agree with anybody who I've heard
Well, what do you
talk
do?
about it. My thing with this line, and the reason that I can't get it out of my head, I think, is because I think it comes from two different places for each of the sisters. And I might be wrong about this, but this is just my feeling. Martha says to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Oftentimes I hear people sort of interpreting this as like an accusation, like saying, like, where were you?
Yeah,
If you had been here, you wouldn't have died.
yeah,
But to me, it sort of feels like more like a faith statement. Like, hey, Jesus, look what happened. I know that if you had been here, he wouldn't have died. And I'm disappointed. But now that you've arrived on the scene, her next line is, but even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give to you.
yeah.
Now that he's arrived on the scene, that has changed the whole tenor of the atmosphere for Martha.
Well,
In my opinion, like, they're in mourning, but Jesus has arrived, which means that something amazing is going to happen.
I think it could have a little bit of both, because I think if you were to look at your own spiritual life, at what point do you blame God for something? Very humanly, very naturally blame God for something bad that's happened,
Sure.
while at the same time expressing the faith that he can overcome it, right? Because though on one hand, you could say, well, Lord, if you made the choice, if you did this differently, if we played the cards differently here, this situation that we're in right now would never have happened.
Yep.
And I think that speaks to our own human frustration. And it's good to hear that, because in our own spiritual lives, we have to have the ability to say that to God, or we lie. We can give pious answers, but I think the reality is we would be lying to God if we didn't say how we felt. But at the same time, express faith as the next line, which is, I believe that you can make this better. That you can make the difference here. And I think being able to do both is a very human experience.
Yeah. Should I keep going? Let's keep reading.
Please.
Okay. So when she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, the teacher is here, and he is asking for you. As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him. For Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews were with her in the house... did I read that right? Yeah. So when the Jews who were with her in the house comforting her saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died.
Right to the point.
She says it again. And what's
Yeah.
interesting to me here is it's kind of like cheeky to me. How the roles have been reversed. Martha is the one who's expressing all these things of faith, and Mary is the one. Like, that read of that line to me feels much more like accusatory. Like, if you had been here, he wouldn't have died. Like, suddenly Mary is the one who, like, has all this, baggage, inability to see.
Well, it's kind of interesting to think that
if you had been here, he wouldn't have died.
Well, in our own relationship with God, that we come in with expectations. And I don't think that that's a bad thing either. It's if you're in a relationship with somebody, there is an expectation,
Sure.
right? Like if I'm with my wife and it's like, well, if she is expecting me to, take care of the kids while she's doing something, she can look at me rightfully and say, I expected that you were going to do this thing that this relationship says you were going to do. And I think that her expectations speak to that, that hope that, like, well, if we're in a relationship with one another, you would have done this differently.
All right, I'm going to keep reading. It says, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled, and said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Sir, come and see. And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, see how he loved him? But some of them said, could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that this man would not have died?
Yeah, so there's a lot going on here, but
Yeah.
the part that really gets me, the part that sticks with me every time I read this passage, is the part where Jesus is perturbed and deeply troubled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very powerful words. The another translation says this, that he was greatly disturbed and deeply moved. Right? But I like this idea that we have a God who has allowed himself to be disturbed by a situation, right? That he has been broken up by this situation, that there's something about this that bothers him to the core. And you know, I think this speaks to the human experience of anxiety, right? So we have a very anxious Jesus, right, who's standing before the tomb of his friend, and or is about to stand before the tomb of his friend, and he just realized that he is just so bothered by this. And I think that there's a couple of points of reference that make these choices of words a little interesting. So in Greek, the words are tarasso and embrimeomai. So
Okay.
for perturbed and deeply troubled. And what makes this so interesting is that later on in the gospel, Jesus is going to have one of his most famous sayings where he says exactly the opposite. Here he is he's very disturbed by the situation, but he will say later on in the gospel when he's, you know, with his apostles, he says, do not let your hearts be troubled.
Oh.
Believe in God, believe in me. So he says, do not let your hearts be tarasso. Believe in God, believe also in me. The same thing he asks us not to do,
He's doing
right here, right? But it's interesting because he says it because he understands the human emotion, right?
Yes, he does.
He knows exactly what it's like to feel, you know, perturbed or deeply troubled. So I just thought that was interesting.
It is interesting. I find it fascinating too because, like, he knows what's going to happen. He's known since the beginning of the text.
Yeah.
And yet he's crying. And so, like, where's that coming from? He's not crying in the same way that Mary and Martha are crying, that they feel like they've seen their brother for the last time.
Right.
What is he crying about? And I think if you read the text, it tells you, right? It says, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not the loss of Lazarus, because he knows what he's about to do, right? It's like he's seeing these people deeply upset, and like a tuning fork is responding like any normal empathetic human being would do
Right.
at someone else's distress. And I think that even to emphasize your point that he knows what these emotions are like, he cares very deeply about what we are feeling and experiencing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
He gets it from a first person perspective, and also like from a paternal perspective, our feelings impact him.
Well, when we're going through something awful, one of the worst experiences we can feel is when somebody invalidates our feelings. You know, when they say in some roundabout way, your feelings aren't valid. But Jesus turns around and says, no, your feelings are valid. They are legitimate. In fact, they are so real that they bother me. They hurt me.
Right.
You know, I'm hurt with you in this. And that he makes the choice to suffer with us. And
that points to his later experiences, right, that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of weeks. Like, he chooses to suffer with us, like, quite literally, if you think about the Passion, right? He chooses to come into our suffering.
Yeah.
And allows himself to, you know, be whipped and degraded and spit on and crucified. Like, I feel like that moment, Jesus wept. People love to talk about it because it says something very deep about God's relationship with us and the way he feels about us. And how how deeply he feels our experiences, our hurts and our pains, you know?
Yeah, well, later on in the gospel, he'll say something. He'll say this. He'll say, "Peace I leave you, my peace I give to you." And so the word peace, which is in Greek is eirene, is this new experience that he wants to give us. You know, in the midst of our suffering and our hardship, his gift for us is that we feel peace, and that peace doesn't come easily.
Sure.
You know, but it's something that he wants us to have as gift.
Right.
And he says, "I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled." It's that same word again, tarasso. And do not let them be afraid, right? And there's a difference between, looking at Jesus as this far removed deity who just is on high and looks at our suffering as though we're, ants on the bottom from the top of the mountain, right? It's like, no, he is speaking about these experiences in the midst of our own hardship and suffering.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know. I love it so much. Want me to keep reading?
Please.
Okay, I'm going to keep reading. So it says, "So Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, 'Take away the stone.' Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, 'Lord, by now there will be a stench. He has been dead for 4 days.' Jesus said to her, 'Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?' So they took away the stone. And Jesus raised his eyes and said, 'Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me, but because of the crowd here I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me.' And when he had said this, cried out in a loud voice, 'Lazarus, come out.' The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands, and his face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, 'Untie him and let him go.' Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him." And that's the punchline of the story, right?
Yeah.
And many of the Jews who had come to weep with Mary and Martha began to believe in him.
Yeah, there's something very poignant about Jesus facing a tomb, because his life at this point, he is facing his own tomb.
Imminently, right?
Yeah, very imminently.
This is the last reading I think we have before
Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here he is, and he is looking at a tomb, and he is going to effect a resurrection, right? And this is more of a resuscitation than a resurrection, but the symbolism is still there. Here he is staring death in the face.
Yeah.
And he looks at it and says, "Be done with,"
Lazarus come out.
Right? And out he comes. And this is supposed to be, this is the ultimate hope, right? For any of us who have lost somebody, who's died, we have this hope that they live again, right?
We know that.
Yeah, we take that with us. Suffice to say, if we were at any other graveside and somebody came up to the grave and said, "Hey, person, come out,"
right,
we would get kind of freaked out by that.
Totally.
But here, this is a story that's met with awe and relief and joy, because Lazarus lives.
Word. I wanted to ask you too, as the resident Bible nerd, is this the only time in the Bible that someone comes back from the dead?
No,
or does it happen in other places too?
You have the story of Jairus' daughter, where Jesus raises the dead girl to life. He has this kind of MO.
Does that take place in John's gospel?
No, it happens in Mark's gospel. But you still have this kind of this precedence for that Jesus is somebody who raises the dead.
Other than like the narrative, like the Jesus narratives.
Yeah.
Does anyone in the Old Testament come back from the dead? Or am I putting you on the spot?
You're putting me on the spot, and that's okay. I think the story where you have Elijah raising a sick child. I think there's. You put me on the spot.
All right.
And that's okay.
I'll let you. I'll start the next podcast with that question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm just curious to know because just want to know if this is the first time the Lord has done this in the narrative, of our salvation, the salvation narrative.
Yeah.
Is this an unprecedented event?
Because there's two resuscitation miracles that I can think of. There's the healing of Jairus' daughter, and the healing of the widow, or the raising of the widow's son, which happens as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So Jesus has been doing this, but that's not in that's not in John's gospel. But still, it's still. I mean, I think if you see anyone get raised from the dead like that,
Word.
you're gonna feel pretty good about that. Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts about this text before we sign off?
Well, I think for us right now, I think it would help us to try to see this story from the perspective of its players,
Totally.
of its characters, because right now we're in the midst of a kind of collective societal mourning, where it feels like we've been kind of cut off from life.
Yeah.
But there is this hope, right? That when we hope in Christ, that there is this hope for a resurrection or a bringing back to life, because we hold out hope for something greater, that there is going to be something better than what we're experiencing right now. And for Martha and Mary, their life was not. I mean, it was at a low point, and it was not going to get any better. And they look at Jesus and say, "You need to fix this." And Martha expresses that, as you had pointed out, with a certain degree of faith and hope. Mary is just a little bit more direct, or at the point,
a little angrier.
She's like, "What'd you do, Jesus?"
What up, man?
Yeah. But
The man.
But I feel like we can get something from Martha and Mary, and
Totally.
and try to approach our own contemporary situation with some degree of grace and faith and hope.
No, I agree, and I totally agree. And to echo that, last night when I was falling asleep, anticipating us recording this today, like the line that stood out in my head was, "Jesus, if you had been here, he would not have died." And I think that line, after knowing the ending of this particular story, it still stands.
Yeah.
It's not just like an accusation. It's a fact.
Yeah.
Jesus, if you had been here, he would not have died. Well, now Jesus is here, and he's risen from the dead. And
maybe that can become a prayer that we take into the next week, is to say, look at the thing in our lives that is really bothering us right now and frustrating us right now, and to look at him and say, Jesus, if you were here, this thing would not have happened. But you are here now.
But you're here.
So what are you going to do about it?
So what are you going to do?
And I'll give you my faith, I'll give you my hope, I'll give you my trust, but what are you going to do?
I think that's a great idea. I'm going to keep saying that. I think it flips my perspective in the right direction.
Yeah, me too.
Quite readily.
All right.
So once again, to that single listener who's still listening at the end of this podcast.
You did this.
Yay! We're so
appreciate
proud
it.
of you. We love you so much.
You worked so hard for this.
You're the best. So again, send us some feedback any way that you can, and we will see you next week.
That's right.
Have a peaceful and lovely day, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.